Well, let me introduce myself very briefly. I'm Mariana Vignati. I'm professor and co-director of the Creative Industries Lab at Politecnico di Milano. I'm an expert in design for kids from 10 years, and I'm director of this master. But before this master, I was also director of the course, the high training program in the same field, design for kids. I want to briefly introduce the overall ingredients of our program. The goal of this master is to train and to, let me say, to transfer the passion we have for kids to a new generation of designers and also a new generation of people that want to work in the field of develop services, activities, and also products focus on the kids environment. We want to train a new generation of designers with these specific skills because we started to work in this specific area since 2009, and we discovered that in this specific market, there are a lot of big companies, not only in Italy, but in the world, that are not structured in their development process with the specific people with knowledge in design, products, toys, but not only toys, considering kids at the center of their innovation process. Then our idea at the beginning of our research and training process was to introduce this new approach, put children at the center of the innovation process, and then try to understand which kind of real needs we need to address in order to develop useful products, services, and activities. We have three main areas of professional development. First of all, the freelance as professional consultants for companies, not only in the toys sector, but in all the sectors in which companies can develop products focus on kids, for example, furniture, fashion, and so on. But of course, also our idea is to train people that can become employee in companies, especially in two main areas: the research and development area, and also the marketing one, because during the last 5 years, thanks to our previous experience of the course, we have monitored the employment of our students, and we know they are mainly in these two departments, and also startuppers. So we have in our list of students a lot of startuppers that, thanks to this course and thanks to this master, started their own business. And with this specific focus, kids, not only with the products, but also with the services with activities, also in collaboration with the education structures or cooperatives or also institutions like schools or educational institution. We started very early in 2015 with our blended learning. Before the COVID-19, we started to perform our master with the any learning phase. We have a platform in which there are all the modules, the didactic modules that cover 14 different disciplines. After this learning phase, there is a more practical phase in which, thanks to workshops, students can learn on how to put in practice some tools and some knowledges learned in the e-learning phase, and at the end the professional internship. But at the end I think I can explain much more the structure of our program. As I said, since 2004, we started to work in research and training in this specific field. And we have now a very large network of professors, experts, companies, and associations that with us they want to develop specific methodologies, tools, and knowledge in order to improve the innovation, but with a specific focus and with the specific aim to put children at the center of our innovation approach. As I mentioned before, in our program, we have collected more than 14 different disciplines. Then we have modules in psychology, materials, laws, ICT, because this kind of sector needs to have at least this overview of the disciplines that contribute to the design of new services and new products for kids. But of course, put the children at the center of our innovation pathway means to consider play and the playfulness as the key element for the design activity. In this sense, our approach is not to teach students on how to design a toy, even if in a lot of workshops we work with the companies that produce toys, and then we work in this specific field. But our idea is to transfer to our students the capacity to use playfulness as a key value to develop all the products around kids, and not only around kids, but also around the ecosystem of adults that contribute to the growth of kids. And this is more or less the main value of our approach, not put technology, materials, innovation at the beginning and kids at the end, but the opposite, put at the beginning kids, observe them, engage them, and then try to understand which kind of value we can design for them. We, as I mentioned at the beginning, we discovered that there is a lack of awareness, especially of companies that are working in this field, about the culture of kids. There is, in the last 20 years, we think that maybe the idea to push with the marketing approach products, selling products to parents in general contributed to the design approach, not in the sense of start from the needs of users, but start from the idea to sell products. We want to create a new mindset, not only in our students, but also in the companies that are working with us. And our idea is to put at the center children in order to redefine also opportunities for innovation, because we are discovering that we can learn a lot from children in order to understand new needs and then develop new solutions. Our approach is very practical, and our focus is not only on product, of course, is mainly on product, because at the end we want to transfer capacity to manage the complex innovation of new products, but we are discovering that in the future evolution of a sharing economy, our students need to learn also on how to develop new services, or more in general, new product service system able to answer to the contemporary needs of children. As I said, our methodology is very practical. We adopt a practice-based approach, supporting the learning experience of students and encouraging them in making prototypes, make play tests, make research activities, observation, real engagement of kids in real life situation. It's incredible, but also in this period in which coronavirus has stopped most of these activities, our students use the digital technologies to perform more or less the same activities, but using different platforms and different technologies. For example, Instagram, surveys, and interviews to parents, also digital lab with kids. And this is extremely interesting for us, also for the future, because we have students from all over the world, and we want to encourage them not only to, of course, to follow our master, but also to become member as ambassador of our international network of experts. The real common element of our students is the passion for kids. Not in general the background, because we have students from different backgrounds, from architecture, design, engineering, but also from the humanistic field, psychology, education, and this kind of background. And then it's interesting to have for us not only students in our master, but also people that want to stay in our network also after the training experience. In short, the structure of our master, as I said, there is a first phase of e-learning, 6 months, and every student can self-regulate their time and the learning experience, thanks to a very open approach we adopted in preparing this e-learning phase. There are different modules, there are different assessments. We on the back of a team of professors and tutors that can support the students in the learning experience, then I can say that this phase is extremely flexible, and it is also feasible for professionals that want to continue their professional job, or people that are employed in companies. You can easily manage your free time to follow these modules and to perform your assessment and continue to stay in your position. After this first part, there are two big workshops, 1 month each, that usually we develop with the company, with a specific brief, with an hands-on experience, a very practical experience, answer to real needs of companies, in order to use the tools you learn in the first e-learning phase in a more practical way, working in team, and also follow the overall design thinking process, again having in mind the kids at the center, and also engaging the kids in the workshop experience. During this lockdown, we also tested a very interesting methodology to perform the workshop in a remote way. After I will tell you how we developed this experience. Then we, of course, our idea is to have a very physical experience, 2 months full of job, full time. Then for 2 months you have to be in Milan to follow our workshop, but in any case we are ready also for the next edition to perform also a very interesting experience, but with the use of the digital platform. After this practical part, we have the professional internship, and again here we are open to understand which is the best solution for each candidate. Go in a company and have an experience inside the company, or maybe perform an activity in order to build a new business, or a professional experience in a design company or in research centers. In this sense, I think we are also open to, thanks to our international network, to have internship not only in Italy, but especially at international level. I want to use a couple of minutes to tell you about our Penta workshop. Unfortunately, we had a few slides, but if you follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, you can see our activities and the results of our activities. During, as I said, during this lockdown, we decided to perform the workshop involving 8 universities in 5 countries with more than 50 students from all over the world. And our students worked with the different students from different universities, but on the same brief. And I can say it was an amazing experience for them, and also, and even if we we use digital technologies, it was a really amazing experience for them, a very practical one, in which they have learned on how to manage the job using the best of their knowledge and the best of the time zone opportunity, working 24 hours per day, but with the same methodology and with the same tools. And I think this experience it's also interesting for us for the future, because we are ready to continue this kind of design workshop activities in a remote way, even also after the COVID-19 emergency. Briefly, here you can see more or less the companies in our network. We work a lot with them, because there is now a real cooperation among our research group, our training program, and also their activities of innovation. Some of them are startups from our students, and some others are big companies with which we are continuing to develop new projects, new products. After, for example, the last edition of the master, Ravensburger and AP bought some ideas, and they are developing in order to arrive into the market with the concepts developed in our workshop. Then it's a real hands-on experience for students. But of course, other possibilities is to develop an own approach to this in this field as an expert or a professional, and also startuppers. Here some basic information about the application. Our master will start at the end of January 2021, the third edition. You have to send a motivation letter, curriculum, and portfolio if your background is in the field of design, architecture, or engineering. You need to have the bachelor degree at least to attend the master. And we usually have a Skype conversation with me and with the other director, Professor Foyce, because we, as I said during my presentation, the passion is the main key value of our students, and we want to have a conversation in order to test this passion before the starting of the master. I think it's enough from my side. If I don't know, don't know if there are questions.
There are some questions actually, yes. So
okay.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And we are receiving some questions, and I'd like to remind all the attendees to write their question into the Q&A section. So we have Graciela, who's asking us, first of all, is thanking for making this presentation, and is asking how is the global demand for toys, and is there a field with high demand, or there is more work to do? She's actually referring to the goals shows in the presentations.
I can say the demand from parents is extremely over what they can find in the market. This is why we decided to start this training program, because we discovered, of course, when everything is fine in the market, no problem, companies are not used to perform their best in the innovation. But when something become more difficult, or they have knowledges and tools to overcome these challenges, or it's very difficult for them. Consider that in the last crisis, 2008 to 2010, actually the crisis never stopped, but the last one before the COVID-19, the unique sector without so many problems was the one of toys and products for kids. But actually now there is a demand from company of specific knowledges and specific experts able to work in this specific field with a new mindset, with the capacity to understand the new needs, considering the digital transformation, the impact of the digital transformation in the new generation of kids. Companies are not equipped in answer to these challenges, and this is why we think, and this is why in our program we have this combination of disciplines: ICT, psychology, pedagogy, materials, technology, design thinking, human-centered design, because we are sure that companies need to have these overall structured knowledges to overcome the challenges. But again, we are sure that there is a high demand of professionals with this specific background, especially in big companies structured to develop products and services.
Thank you so much. We have another question from Juan Francisco, who is actually greeting us from Ecuador. They say, hi Arianna, it's nice to hear from you again and see the design for kitten toy is now a master. Is it possible to attend the master fully online?
I can say yes, because as I mentioned before, we have tested a way to perform the workshop also in the remote way. And for this edition, and the second workshop, since in September, Politecnico di Milano allowed to have students face-to-face. We are managing the second workshop of this edition physical for students that can come to Milan and stay in the room, but with the connection, with a remote connection with the students that are not able to come in Milan. For example, we have one student from Canada and he cannot come in Milan in September. Then I can say that for sure for the third edition we'll be able to manage everything online, also the workshop. But consider that the learning phase allow you to self-manage your time during the weekend, during the night. You can study when you want, but during the workshop, the commitment is full day, and this means even if you are abroad, if you are online, your commitment is full time. Then there is you have to consider this point also, for example, for who is employed or is a professional. Then the idea is to have 2 months, but fully committed in the workshop.
Thank you so much. Speaking of workshop, and I actually see that you have the slide open, we have a question about if you can give some example of which companies actually you collaborated with during your workshop for the previous edition of the master?
Yes, I can, as I said before, the two companies bought the ideas, then I can show you only the concepts that are free from this obligation. I don't know if you see, for example, this one.
Yeah, we can.
Yes, this one was last year we had a very interesting collaboration with the Ravensburger on a puzzle. And when they said to me, okay, we can perform a workshop on puzzle, I said, oh my God, what kind of innovation we can perform in this sector. And I was really surprised about the answer of our students. This is an example of a prototype made in 1 week from our students. You cannot imagine which kind of possibilities of innovation and playability. Before this prototype, students had a play test with the 10 kids, and they completely changed their idea according to the feedback they collected from kids. And this is why we are stressing the point to have a concrete interaction with the kids, especially during our workshop. This is another example of prototype made for AP. It's a kit connected to a collection of toys they have. It's for 2-3 years old kids, then very, very early. And the idea is to hack products and objects around the house, but with these specific stickers and materials. And these are only 2 examples of projects developed by our students.
Thank you so much. We actually have time for a couple more questions. So we do have a question from Kiati. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. She's thanking us for the presentation. She's a design student based in India. I'd like to know if there will be any preparatory courses before joining this master. Consider the education system that is a little bit different.
Which kind of courses do you? We have collaboration with the 3 Indian universities, and in general we are very open to a customized approach to our students. Then I think the best it's interesting to have maybe from you a specific email with the courses you are following, in order to understand together which specific maybe books or what kind of activities or courses you can follow in order to maybe fill the gap between your educational system and our. But in general, we usually have, especially in the learning phase, a very customized approach to our students in order to complete the gap between the bachelor and our master.
Thank you so much. We actually have time for a final question. In terms of the prototype that you showed us before, they're asking how is it possible to work on those in terms of online classes? So the worry is, if all the classes are online, how can we work on those prototypes?
I don't have the images of the prototype my students done during the Penta workshop, but I can guarantee that you can make your prototype, because of course these prototypes were the final one done in our laboratory, but in my experience, you can discover that you have a lot of resources you can use also during the online education. Then of course, you can learn, and we teach you on how to create a prototype, test, because for example, now in Italy, we are not in strictly lockdown. Then our students can interact with, of course, with all the security and safety rules, but can interact with a small group of children. Then we are sure that also with the online education, we can have the same experience that we have done in the past with the face-to-face.